Frank, I can't believe it's already Sunday. Happy Sunday. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Busy day. I've been sleep deprived for, how important we talk about how important sleep is.
Hell yeah.
We're big sleep advocates here, right?
Yep.
But, life happens and I've been in a season where I got a lot of things to do. So I have been skipping on the sleep.
Wow.
Um, today, I think I might have got 6 hours today, but I've been training a lot, training for American Nationals. So I really need more sleep than that. But these projects they're just there, and I'm kind of an obsessive personality. That's part of the reason when I've had success in my life. I've had it because I'm the obsessive type, sometimes the obsessive compulsive type. I take pride in things. I'm very passionate. I'm very competitive. I like to be overly prepared, but sometimes it's hard to sleep when you're that kind of personality because you just want to go, 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 go. So I've gotten better over the years. I'm mindful of it. I'm aware, but right now, I need a good 8, 9, 10 hour sleep day to catch
Mm,
up, and I'm going to get
yeah.
one of those coming up here soon. But in the meantime, today we're on 6 hours of short rest. It's been a busy day, and here we are, just taking a quick shower after training, throwing this on, and it's a good day though. Good day, eating healthy, feeling good. I'm walking around at 135 pounds, easiest ever. And I'm someone who's competed at 150 pounds. I've been 167, very muscular. So I'm down 32 pounds from a Frank that in college was very muscular and very strong. But I think that at this point in my life, not just competition jiu-jitsu, but I view it as, longevity is one of my big things, right?
Yeah.
So longevity and what's called health span. Health span is not just living a long time, but living healthily a long time. I don't even know if that's a word. I like that word, healthily. Living healthily a long time. And so to me, part of longevity is you've got to detox the body. You've got to get more efficient. You've got to get more economical. And you've got to put less of a burden on the arteries, on the vessels, on the organs, etc., on the immune system, on the gut. So the end result of that is that I'm walking around at 135 now, and I don't actually like that, Noah. Someone said to me yesterday, this was a compliment after training at Robert Drysdale's. Guy was in there, I think he's a black belt, and he said, if I had to guess, he said, you look about 155 pounds, 160. You look like that's what you weigh to me. He weighed like 210, 205. And I took that as a compliment. A couple of people have said that. Like, you look 155, you look 160. I like that. I take that as a compliment. It's nice you're smaller, but somebody actually thinks you're bigger, right? And then the inverse is true for a lot of other people. A lot of other people don't like people to actually guess their weight. If you're heavy, they don't want to own that weight. They'd like for people to guess less, right? A heavier person, like, I hope, please guess yes and be kind. I like when people guess and think I'm heavier.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, good, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk to you about a couple things today because for my training and where I'm at, I need some pointers, and I bet these are. I can assure you that these are common. Okay. I've been sitting in this chair for a year now, or you know, 18 months. I've been sitting in this chair for 18 months, essentially, and my my right hip, um, I'm actually uh, having pain in my right hip from like getting out of the car, and my lower back. If I go for a walk, my lower back is hurting me. All of a sudden, it's hurting me, and now I've got some chronic injuries, but I feel like, man, I really need to just get someone in close guard and just work my hips, that movement, move that connective tissue around, um, and just get the synovial fluids moving again in the joints. I'm going to hurt the next day, of course, But I feel like that's a situation. Now, earlier this year, I was doing a lot of ab work every day. Oh, with 20-minute day is my yoga abs thing that I totally love. It's like the hardest stuff. And my lower back pain went away. However, this joint pain was still there in my hip. And, lower back pain is pretty common. I got to say that me doing more ab work helped with the lower back, but the hip thing, yeah, I don't know about it. It's like a mobility in my right hip. We have the guy, James, the Vulcan Grip massage therapist here in Las Vegas. Yeah, I'll look up whenever you start talking again. I'll look up his Instagram page. But James he's helped me out a lot as a massage therapist. I need to go back and see him and work with him on that. He's got the strongest hands ever I've seen, and I've had him work on my calves before because they're down, where the connective tissue uh, uh, meets the shin bone. I've had a lot of tension down there in that area in my calves, and he's worked it. He's worked it like at the right level. I just saw on his Instagram recently he gave a massage to Floyd Mayweather. I mean he's really good, and he used to have a spot there at the Whole Foods on Las Vegas Boulevard, and whenever Whole Foods was getting itself prettied up to sell itself to Amazon, they kicked him out. They didn't want to have that. I guess that kind of risk associated with having a massage therapist in the Whole Foods. There was also a yoga sanctuary, which I forgot his name, Tam. Um,
Yeah, Alvin Tam
Alvin Tam.
and his wife. Good people, excellent people.
Yeah, I took some yoga classes there. Yeah, yeah, I remember them. Yeah, that's unfortunate that they did that. Whole Foods did that with them. But there's been no loss of demand for James's services. He's really, really a solid, massage therapist. He has his own studio now.
What's amazing about James, who I actually just saw because I'm at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And I just saw him. He's got like 8 or 9 kids, and he's
six
a bear.
kids.
Yeah, 6 kids. Okay, so
yeah,
he's a bear of a man.
Yes.
But he's a gentle giant. And what I think is so amazing about him as a masseuse or a massage therapist is that he's like 230 pounds, and like you said, I mean, this guy. There's regular grip power, then there's strong grip power, then there's really strong grip power, and then there's just like a guy that could
freakish.
If he was a mean guy, could probably snatch someone's larynx out of their throat if he was that evil of a person. I mean, he's that strong. But what's interesting and what I think applies to real life and what applies to the combat sports is he's got those degrees. He sort of knows, he has the intuition, he has the experience, he's able to manage his touch, manage the pressure to where he's able to feel what you need and adapt. He's got a big continuum so he just really has that knack that an expert has. I say that I don't care, and I'm including the combat sports in this too. If you don't have different levels, if you don't have a flow level, an intermediate level, a hard level, a Hulk level, you're not really an expert. A true master, it's like Bruce Lee in the old days, a true master could throw a punch as hard as they can and come within a quarter of an inch of your face and stop the punch and pull the punch. And you wouldn't even know you were hit. They have that level of control, that level of subtle control. That's true mastery. Just that you're great and you're this phenomenal athlete and you're stronger than everybody and you're fast and you train a lot and you're tough and you're the best or you're one of the best. And that's great. Get you paid. Everybody knows your name, but there's a lot more room for improvements. You should be able, I don't care how big you are, 220 pounds. You should be able to train with a 120-pound person, the 110-pound woman, and have a decent role and she not get hurt at all. they not feel a thing.
Yeah.
You should be able to train with anybody, a real master, and they don't feel, unless you're going in the real intense roles, unless you're getting ready for a world championships or a big tournament. There are exceptions. If you're at one of those academies that's one of the top in the world and you're competing a lot, the competition team. But by and large, I think you should have. I bet you could go to Lucas Leprie's gym. I think he's in Charlotte, and I bet you Lucas Leprie doesn't hurt anybody. He could train with anybody in that class, and nobody's going to get hurt. You know, he's got that level of control. He can dial it in, and the really smart ones, the really smart masters, not only can they adapt it to your level, to where you're not going to get hurt, you almost won't even feel a thing. They could dominate you, and you almost don't feel a thing. But in addition, they're getting good work. Like the really smart ones. I remember there was a guy, Daniel Beleza. Daniel Beleza, a lot of people don't know his name. He's a light featherweight. He's a legend. He should be a IBJJF Hall of Famer. He was like 40 years old, and he got bronze medal at the World Championships, IBJJF World Championships in the gi. Bronze medal. He upset, I believe he upset Guilherme Mendes. And Daniel Beleza is notorious for having one of the best closed guards out there. He's this skinny guy, 137, 38 pounds. And he has an academy in York, Pennsylvania. And when I saw Daniel, I said, because we've competed at the Pan Americans and the same, we've been on the podium together and all that good stuff. And he said, Frank, I train for my tournaments with white and blue belts. I got ready for world championships with white and blue belts.
Makes sense.
And when I talked to Cobrinha a few years ago, Rubens Charles Cobrinha, who's got a beautiful expression of jiu-jitsu, and now his son, Kennedy is just got a beautiful expression of jiu-jitsu too. I talked to Cobrinha before ADCC the year that he won it, okay? And he said, I trained with purple belts for this. I trained with my purple belts. I didn't train with a lot of brown and black for this one. I had to teach a lot. I trained with purple belts, and he trained a lot of wrestling too. But my point is, the really smart ones can train with people that aren't killers, that aren't phenomenal, and they're still learning, and they're still drilling, and they're able to use those partners as a learning, not just like, oh, you're a blue belt, I have nothing to gain. I wouldn't benefit from the role. The really smart masters can roll with a kid. They can roll with a female who's much lighter. They could roll with the blue belts. They could roll with the purple belts and get ready for major tournaments. I know that's counterintuitive, but I've seen a number of them do it. And I'm not recommending it. I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm not saying that that's the blueprint or the way to go. I'm just saying it's been done before. Floyd Mayweather did it in boxing. Floyd Mayweather wasn't training with killers in the gym, but he was ready on fight day in his prime. So my point there is, when you get to be a true master, you've got a bunch of different levels and speeds and different points of pressure you can apply. You're expert at how much you need to apply, reading the situation. And you should be able to train with a lot of underbelts, people that sometimes aren't even that good, but get you ready because you know how to learn even while training with them. Now, one other thing, Noah, before we go any further. We are going to have to talk during this podcast. We have to talk about Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul, the fight last week. There are so many goodies and carryovers from that fight that apply to martial artists, the path of a martial artist. There is so much wrapped in that fight that just happened that is relevant for the martial artist, for the combat sports athlete. There's so much wisdom wrapped in it. We need to talk about that.
Okay. By the way, before we get much further, I want to mention this is James's Instagram. Let me get it right there. Vulcan Grip. He's got his rates and phone number there. So if his appointment book fills up fast. And I know right now he closed his studio, so he's just doing house calls only. But he is in and out of the strip hotels all day long.
He's a good guy, man.
He's a good guy. Yes, I trust him. He
doesn't need the business, but it's good to it's a good thing to do to refer business to someone who truly deserves it and is truly really dang good, a master of his craft.
Yeah, he's this is irrelevant. But I want to just tell you, he's a God fearing man. He's very active in his faith and his church, and his children are. When you see them at the grocery store, they are by far the most well behaved troop of kids I've ever seen together.
Yeah, and he wears that. He wears his faith, his religion well. You follow him on Facebook too. I do too. And he's the kind of guy that wears it well. He's not bothering anybody. He'd give you the shirt off of his back. He's
Yeah,
he's not walking around judging people, and
that's right.
he's not that person. So
Yeah, he's not
he's
proselytizing everyone who.
yeah
Yeah, no, yeah,
yeah.
no, he's great about that. So let me just uh, so I talk about the injuries and having a massage therapist. The Epsom salt soaks, doing that. Out here in Las Vegas, I wear flip flops most of the time, and my feet get so dry and they start cracking. Where they have that painful cracks in them. So I know if we go rolling on the mats, that's a place
Let,
for
let me let, let-
bacteria.
can I solve that problem for you now, or at least
I'm bringing up
improve that one?
I'm
Okay.
bringing it up because
So what you're gonna do? I'm not, Frank has his own nutrition things. I don't have a ton of nutrition clients, but I'm lucky. I've had a number of them over the years. I've even had them in other countries. I hope I can get a lot more of them, but I've been down that rabbit hole. I'm not a huge fan of olive oil, for consuming it with salads and cooking with it. I'm not a huge fan of that, especially if people already have diabetes and heart disease or high cholesterol, etc. So I think that a lot of people who, when they say, "Hey, the Mediterranean diet's so great," and people say, "Well, olive oil is so good for your heart and your vascular system," I think that the research that I've seen, people are healthy because of the Mediterranean diet, the balance of that diet, more fruits and veggies and beans and legumes, etc. So it's in spite of olive oil, not because of olive oil. In my Forza theory, people are healthy with the olive oil thing. In spite of it,
okay,
it's neutral at best. However, I'm going to give you the best use ever of olive oil right now, and it's on the skin. Right? I saw something recently, and I'm Mediterranean. I've got the Italian, I've got the Spanish, I've got the Middle Eastern blood in me too. So we love olive oil. It's in our blood. So me saying that olive oil is neutral is almost blasphemous, right? That's like people in my family will disown me for saying that. But it's notorious that it's very good for your hair. No, I'm not trying to tick you off there. No, I'm not. But maybe your facial hair. It's Olive oil is very good for the hair. You don't want to leave it. You'd leave it for an hour or 2 hours. You do it maybe a couple times, a week. But it's great for the skin. And there was a story recently. J Lo was like the secret. J Lo looks really good, right? The actress, the singer. She looks really good for her age. She's in her 50s. She's one of those people that's aging phenomenally. And she's like, one of my secrets is I use olive oil on my skin. So what I'm going to recommend, people think of it on their skin, they think of it on their face, think of it on their hair. They don't think of it on their feet. It works wonders on your feet. I get dry feet too. So you're going to take it, you're going to get some extra virgin, organic, cold pressed, unrefined. That's what you want.
mm-hmm.
Organic, extra virgin, cold pressed, unrefined. You're going to go to Sprouts or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, something like that. You're going to get it. When you put it on your skin, you can put it directly, but it's a little better if you split it. I like to split it with a good water, not a crappy tap water, which is, Vegas, Vegas tap water is rough on a lot of things. So I would recommend getting some spring water, splashing like a little spring water there, putting, the olive oil there, rub it in your feet. You do that for a week, your feet are going to be the softest. They're going to be the softest that they've been. It's going to alleviate a lot of that cracking, and then you're going to come on the show in a couple weeks and brag about your feet. Is what's going to
Well,
happen.
the problem is, okay, for me, I have a weirdness about my feet. Okay, first thing is like, some people have said, and I've asked I've asked the ladies there at the where I get a pedicure, and I said, so what do I do about this? And they're like, well, you need to put they said put some lotion on your feet, put socks on, and sleep with them. I can't sleep with anything on my feet need to be free. Like even the blankets. I sleep at night. My feet are sticking out of the blankets. Okay, my feet I need freedom. Those feet need freedom. And man, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to be sporting socks. I'm going to put some olive oil. I'm going to have my olive oil socks, and I'm going to be sporting
Well, you
flip flops with socks around here.
You could put it on at a level where your feet weren't like super greasy. You can find the soft spot and figure out this much olive oil with this much water. You can find that where it's not, you're not walking around the house. Because you're right. If you put it, like I usually put it a lot on the front of the foot and then a little bit on the back. But if you put a lot, like if you do the whole foot, top and bottom, and then you walk around the house, you're going to have olive oil stains all over the house. You don't want to do that. I mean, you want to do it at more topically on the front of the foot, a little bit on the, the back arch.
Okay.
But you got to be careful on that back arch. The bottom of the foot, you could do that, but you're right. You don't want to be walking around the house. You're going to have to figure out whether it's a sock. You're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, and my dog is going to be like, oh, this is great.
Your dog is going to think he's Italian in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So what do you feel about using cocoa butter?
Quick and easy, a cocoa butter. They have some stuff called Weleda Skin.
Yeah, that's like a German brand.
Cell Skin. Yeah, they're out of there. They have a moisturizer, Weleda Cell Skin, that I think is, again, I'm not a big fan of the chemicals. They go a little bit more on the chemical side, but they do make a good product. Longer term, but they make a good product. I mean, you could do cocoa butter and that sort of thing. The problem with those cocoa butters is a lot of times they're just so generic that they don't have that real moisturizer, that real lasting effect for hours. Like that coconut oil, you use it for a couple of days, you'll start to see when I go to the park, right? I go to the park and I like to be barefoot in the park, right? I like to do my shadow boxing and my animal training, my movement training in the park, get the sun on my skin, and I'm barefoot. And sometimes I was noticing, I'm like, man, my feet have never really been ugly, but sometimes I'm like, wow, my feet are kind of getting a little ugly by my standard. They're getting a little bit ugly.
Yeah.
Like if somebody was to walk by, I'm like, I'm like, some days I'm like, I'm going to hide my feet. So I started doing the coconut, the olive oil, and I'm like, wow, look at my feet glowing. Like even if I missed a day or two, I'm like, my feet look shinier, happier. So, yeah, it's a big thing, especially when you live in these desert climates like we do, Arizona, us, California.
No humidity.
Oh my gosh, it is so. It's so bad even for aging. It's just no bueno. So now again, that's what I would say. I would say, the weird thing is too in jiu-jitsu, I don't know what it is, but it does seem like your feet, I don't know. It seems to me like sometimes my feet are a little more prone to being cracked because I'm on the mats. I don't know. But
yeah. Now I do got a question. This is like ask a black belt session, it seems. But when I'm rolling on the mats, the top of the skin on the top of my feet get rubbed off. And I guess you would call that mat rash or mat burn.
Yeah, you can call it, yeah.
And there's no Band-Aid that will ever work. And you can't use moleskin because that applies directly to the skin. And you guys said tape. So I went to Walmart the other day. I got tape. Okay? I got this tape, this sports tape.
Wait. Well, I want to ask you this. Then let's break this down. Let's rewind. Let's do a rewind for a second. Let's ask ourselves, if we were to think almost like a sports scientist, like that show on ESPN with John Brinkus, who I met. We did a TEDx talk together at Nevada, and let's say we were to break it down and say, that are making his leg, because you're talking about the top of the foot, right? You're getting on the top
The
or the side,
toes,
right?
yeah, the
The
top of the
toes.
toes, yeah,
Okay. So the question then is,
along the joints.
anatomically, biomechanically, what are you doing? I've had that when I was doing a lot more wrestling and I was shooting shots, and I've burned part of my feet with skin burn, mat burn, But the question is, are you trying to pass guard? What position is that happening in? Because it really shouldn't be a regular thing. It should be a rare thing. And if you're getting it, if you have a propensity or you're prone to get it, then we need to look almost like rewind the videotape and say, what is it that you're doing? Is there an error in the technique? Is it something about the way your feet are designed that's making you prone to that? So that's where I would start. Actually, I would start. Are you aware of certain positions where
Yeah,
you tend to get that scraping, that mat burn?
I am. Yeah. So, so when I'm, uh, when we start from kneeling, okay, I don't curl my toes underneath because they're gonna get bent back. My toes are flat on, so my foot
Yeah,
is flat. My foot is flat on the
yeah,
floor,
like
and
in
so
almost like yeah.
and so
Okay,
because of that, I'm not curling my toes under.
yeah.
And when you start rolling with someone, inevitably you're going to get pushed, or you're going to get pulled, and my foot travels across the floor like that because like I'm rolling with guys bigger than I am, and they can move me around. They can move my 250 tailbone around like it's a pail of sand, like a small pail. They can move me around. Um, so that's, my foot gets dragged across the floor, or somehow I might be trying to push off, or pull back in using my upper body, and my foot gets dragged across the floor. That happens all the time, especially when I restart training. A few weeks into it, the skin heals, and it heals with a callus layer over the top. So when I've stepped away from jits and come back, I have that breaking in. I have that breaking in month where it's bleeding. It's horrible. I was looking around. I found something here, a product called New Skin, and it's like a liquid bandage. But I've never seen this before. Um, and I've got to look into it. But man, that's a big problem.
What about those Muay Thai? You see some of the Muay Thai fighters, they kind of put like almost like a wristband. It's over the foot, and that gives it a little bit of support. It's not as much supportive as it is. It's almost like a sleeve. You pull it on the foot. It covers part of the heel. It's got an opening under the heel.
Yeah,
Um, but the only problem is
that's
that doesn't usually give as much protection up at the top near the toes, near the toes. It doesn't give a lot of protection there for anti-scraping or anything like that.
I thought that's more like an ankle. That's more like an ankle brace to give
Yeah.
to give some. And we could talk about ankle flexibility. That's to me, I think there's a few secret, just to move away from the skin. Because our skin is, you have to take care of
Well,
ourselves.
I would say, okay. So without without having the benefit of seeing the video and seeing anatomically, I'm imagining. But let's just say, okay, if it's true, and it is, hey Frank, I train with some guys that are bigger than me, they're stronger than me, they can throw me around. My toe, I'm in this stance where my toes are underneath me, and my toes are getting scraped, and it's causing this mat burn, which is annoying, and which is also a heightened risk of a staph infection, which a pain. Those little cuts can be the
Hmm.
worst cuts.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as, like I say, in the fight sports. The punch you don't see is the punch that'll knock you out, right? It doesn't have to be as hard. It's not the strength of the punch. It's, did you even see the punch? Because if it's not a really strong punch, but it's well placed on the chin and gets a little rattle, you're out. And it's the same thing with um, with with a little cut. Sometimes the major cuts, a bigger cut, is not as big of a deal. Why? Because you're aware that it's a big cut, and you wash it good, and you get some good antibiotic or some topical whatever on it, and you're on it, and you're aware of it, and you're vigilant and you're diligent. The small ones, the little scrapes and things like that, we're like, we
Right.
don't give it any extra attention when we shower. We don't give it any extra cleansing with a hydrogen peroxide or whatever. We don't. We just right? We don't shower right afterwards. So that's dangerous because that could be the punch you don't see. So this is also a heightened risk of that, which is, something we don't want to play around with. So what I would say though, too, just as a starting point is weight distribution. Like even with these guys, because, you are big enough that even if they're a little more skilled and they're bigger and they're stronger, you if you carry your weight the right way, it should be harder for them to do what they want. We need to, as a starting point, make it harder for them, if you're on your knees or you're wherever, to do what they want, to push you, to do something that might scrape that foot or whatever. We need, and that starts with body posture, that starts with a hand fight, and that starts with weight distribution. So is my weight too far back? Is that why they're bumping me, running me over, doing what they want? Is my weight too far forward? What does it feel like to have my weight in the middle, sort of? And so the first thing I would say is an awareness. I would want to do a postural awareness and analysis of, okay, where is Noah's weight? Or when they get a certain grip, where does Noah put his weight? Does he put his weight too far back? Well, maybe that's why he's getting run over, or they're able to exert their power because you're not using your weight in the right way. Which again, Noah, we're not picking on you because this is a normal thing. I mean, all of us, me included as a black belt,
Mm.
there's tons of room for improvement. But I would say, we talk a lot about hand fighting. We talk a lot about postural awareness. What we don't talk a lot about is weight distribution. We talk about balance, and balance is, and weight distribution are very closely linked. But weight distribution, particularly when you're on top, I mean, no offense, like I'm only 135 pounds. I can't hold a world-class jiu-jitsu player or wrestler down. I can't. And there's guys that are, just good or really good that outweigh me by 40, 50 pounds. But I'm telling you what, if you're close to my weight, and I'm on top of you, I feel probably twice my weight. There's some exceptions. There might be some elite players out there that can, get up no problem. But that's one of the things I've been working on a lot lately is weight distribution to suffocate, to control that bottom person. Little micro adjustments of weight distribution. It's huge. It's not even it's not a technique like we think of techniques as in grab the arm, raise the hips, do the arm bar. And those are the techniques that we see that are big techniques, and we see those. What we miss a lot of times in the sport are the micro techniques that are so subtle, something like what a Roger Gracie does, or a Tanquinho who has great pressure. Augusto Mendez has great top pressure. And they're just moving their weight ever so slightly, and that's a technique, right? But it's hard to teach that because it starts with not just teaching, it just starts with awareness, getting people to realize, hey, if that person on the bottom is pushing you, what if you just changed your chest a little bit? What if you moved your hip? If that person in bottom half guard is grabbing your leg and putting you back in bottom half guard, what if you moved your ankle 3 or 4 inches this way? Now it's harder for them to get your leg and put you back in half guard. Those little things are technique, but they involve weight distribution. They involve little micro adjustments, and they're huge. They will make your life if you're on top and you're in side control, and you probably experienced this, Noah, where you're in side control, you work hard, you get in side control, use all that effort, and then you're only able to hold it for 2 seconds or 3 seconds or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and then the person gets out. And you're just like, oh my God, you're starting all over. And
Yeah.
it's okay if you wanted that to happen because you're flowing or something. But when you don't want that to happen, when you wanted to establish the side control and you wanted to then advance from there toward a submission, it's so frustrating. Case in point, last night, Israel Adesanya defended the title against Marvin Vettori.
Yeah.
In the third round, Vettori is losing the whole fight. The whole fight is Israel Adesanya's, but Vettori gets his moment in the third round. He gets the takedown. He takes Adesanya's back. He's very close on a choke.
Yes.
He doesn't get the choke. The line, that moment, if he could come up and somehow there's a technical way. If that had been Damian Maia, let's just make an example. If that had been Damian Maia on Israel Adesanya's back, with the same amount of time on, that fight is probably over. I mean, there's a high probability that fight's just over. It didn't matter if he's losing the whole fight. So my point is, there's a moment there, and sometimes those moments make or break you. You know, you've got to seize them, and the way you seize them is with that extra mastery of the little things, little itty bitty things and micro adjustments and the Jedi things, and that's where you really want to go. So anyway, coming to you, we need to look and say, where's Noah's weight? Where's he distributing his weight?
I'll
Why
tell
is
you.
somebody able to just run him over?
Yep. I know what I'm doing wrong because you pointed it out to me when we were training before, and it's just I think there's a physical weakness that I got to work on, but when I'm in someone's closed guard, I tend to sit down. I put my butt to my ankles. I sit down instead of being up where where my hips are not my hips my from the point of my knee to my shoulders there should be a straight line, I presume, with the natural curvature of the body, but there should be a straight line. What I know that I've done in the past is I would sit down, so I would break that, and the straight line would only be from my hips to my neck, as opposed to from my knees. Where I'm just sitting down. I'm sitting down. That's something I know for sure, and so because of that, all my weight is down on my feet. Excuse me, on the top of my feet. So that's just a training scar.
Let's take a look at, let's do a Marcelo Garcia breakdown and analysis right now. Okay, so Marcelo Garcia in his prime, one of the best out there, and master of the butterfly guard. And I remember I bought a Marcelo Garcia DVD years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things he was talking about is when he's in butterfly guard. So what he does when he's sitting up, let's say when you're sitting, right? So he's sitting on his butt, he's got his legs there, and he's trying to grab the guy and suck the guy into his butterfly guard. Because a lot of times the guys, they wouldn't go to their knees, they would stand over top of him. So Marcelo's on his butt.
Okay.
He's trying to get a hold of the guy, and most guys wanted to stand. They wanted to sort of do a stand-up pass on the outside. Most guys are like, let me try to throw his legs or stack him or whatever. And so what Marcelo Garcia was saying, one of the things that he really emphasized is, listen, this opponent of yours who's standing over you, who's trying to pass, who doesn't want to come into your butterfly guard, one thing they're going to do is they're going to push you in the head a lot. They're going to push you in the head. So I guess he encountered that a lot. That was what guys were trying to do to him. Is like they would hit his head almost like in wrestling, when guys are, when they're messing your neck, some guys get rough about it, right? Some guys don't just put their hand on you. They're not supposed to hit you, but some guys get really heavy and they'll do this to annoy you. That I've seen that many times. They'll do that. They're kind of trying to mess with you a little bit. Conor McGregor, you get in your head a little bit. He encountered that a lot. One of the things he emphasized is, don't worry about that. That was one thing he was like, don't let that throw you off your game. So that was one important thing you're saying. Don't worry about that. But secondly, and very relevant to what we're saying, when he was there in butterfly, he sits a little head. He sits forward because he didn't want to. If he sat back normally on his butt in a normal posture, even a good posture, he's more prone to getting the guy pushing him over and then, lifting his feet and all that stuff and stacking it. So he would exaggerate and sit forward. He moved his weight forward, and that made it even easier if he wanted to come up on a takedown or grab something, come on. So he would sit forward a little. So his weight distribution was a little bit forward. Now, he knew that by sitting forward, they're going to slap my head more. And a lot of people don't like being slapped. But he was like, no, I'm going to be way better and way more effective by me sitting forward. So Marcelo Garcia's butterfly is like this. A lot of people's butterfly is like this. It's here. Well, that's a big difference. It's probably 4 or 5 inches one way or the other. It's a big difference. He felt stronger. He didn't want you to be able to knock him over. He wasn't worried about your hand you tapping his head. He just wanted to get a hold of your knee or your ankle or come up on a single, or grab your arm and suck you in. The other thing, okay, so that's an example of that postural awareness of a guy figuring it out and sitting forward a little more with his butterfly. It's a little different than a lot of people's butterfly. He sits forward a little more. He leads with his head more. The other thing is, I see a lot of kids. I had a kid last week I trained with him. He's a 17-year-old kid, blue belt. Fun to roll with him, my size. And I kept getting his neck easy. I would get his neck easy. And when he'd be on top, I'd be like bottom, butterfly. He'd be on top, and I'd get his neck easy. Or I'd snap his neck easy. And I just said to him, I was like, he was one of those guys, the opposite of Marcelo. When he's in your guard and he's on top, he'd be like this. He'd have his head, and he's one of those guys that like a looker. I call them lookers. He's too excited to look at you. He's using his eyes too much. He's like, Jiu-jitsu is more of a feel thing. Jiu-jitsu is a feel sport. It's not as much, you don't want to trust your eyes as much. The feel, you want to learn to trust feel more, and the timing of that than eyes. So he's there, young guy, and he's, and I'm like, okay, by you having your head down like that, it makes it easy for me to just be like, boom, and I'm in on a front headlock, easy. And like, if you just raise your head about 3 inches to kind of here, and now here, if I'm here instead of here, I can't use my eyes as much. But you don't need to use your eyes as much. You can use your eyes a lot, but if your head is here and you go against a guy that's head hunting, you're going to get front headlock. Easy. You're making it way easier. Just a couple inches can be the difference between that guy snapping your head and being on a good front headlock, or the guy grabbing your head, but your head's strong. So that's an example of postural awareness, weight distribution, neck distribution, where you are. These are big deals. These are very big deals in jiu-jitsu. This is the game within the game. This is the things that the high-level players know. And so everything in jiu-jitsu, one of the biggest lies is, technique conquers all. And I'm a big technical fan and all, but it's a lie. I mean, horsepower matters, flexibility, speed, your IQ matters, your postural awareness matters, your hand fighting matters, your confidence matters, your nutrition matters. There's a lot of things that matter.
It all, yeah. I almost you want to say it all matters, but
these are the things that people don't talk about, and this is why I like to train very technical now, Noah. I don't go super hard. I can. I don't want to, because I want to train another 30 years. I want my body to still work. I don't want to be in the emergency room. I don't want more surgeries. But I train a lot technical. I train tight, but I train technical. And I'm looking for these things. I'm looking to feel more. I'm looking to see, Noah's knee is giving me a problem. Yeah, I could just explode past your knee and solve the problem. Hey, you're when you do that, it's giving me a problem. But I'm just going to yank you really fast or stack you really hard and then problem solved. Yeah, that might be the solution. But at the same time, I'm like, well, wait, what do I do when I'm not as athletic, or I'm not the stronger guy? I'm not
That's
the
right.
athlete. Like, what would be my response? His knee in my chest is giving me problems. His guard is giving me problems. Why? Breaking that down. And when I slow it down technically, when I'm rolling, I'm like, why is this particular what my opponent is doing, why is it giving me problems? If his foot was on my hip, if I move his foot, then what does he do with his hand? And and these are the things that matter. And if you just rush and explode and guerrilla all the time, yeah, you can still learn some of those things, but you're not seeing them you're not seeing them in a way that's growing your IQ the same way. If you could do it a little bit slower. Remember I said, if I was training fighters, stand up, the first thing I would do is be Mr. Miyagi for 6 months. I told you that. Nobody else has ever said that. I'm the only guy I've ever met that said that. I said, I would be Mr. Miyagi for 6 months. You're not going to have a hard sparring session. You're not getting hit very hard. You're not getting punched hard. We're going to do it mental repetition so that you get comfortable somebody swinging at you or doing something with little sticks at 10%, 20%. And we're going to gradually get you used and comfortable to the punches coming.
Well, hey,
And
what you just said right there,
yeah,
whenever I've said that right there, that very concept of starting out low and slow and
yeah,
easy. Remember, I said we've talked about very recently about how do you build up that internal ability to withstand the discomfort, and it's never all sudden hard, full force. You'll like what
yeah,
you said about driving away students. If you want to drive away students from your academy, have them go through a gauntlet. That'll drive away your students immediately. Go all full force, everybody. Red line, everybody, every time. You're going to have more people out on injury. You're going to have more people out, because that's not what it's not a sustainable. That's not a sustainable sport. If you approach it that way, there's so much more
a,
nuance.
a lot of people think, like when I say technical training, there are a lot of people, especially people that are half my age and great athletes, and some of them think, oh, it's like, oh, that's weak, or that's afraid, or this or that. What they don't realize is if you get really good technically, like, so somebody who is way better than me technically could still do whatever they wanted, even if we were going slower, they could still do whatever they wanted. They would still pass my guard, they would still take my back, and they'd still choke me, and they'd still armbar me. If they get their technique even without using all the power, they'd be like, dude, I don't know what to do with the guy. It's not like you can get so good where you can go with a guy, and sometimes you'll train with if you went and trained with Roger Gracie or Robert Drysdale, or if you train with some of these guys and they decided to go 40% against you, they could still dominate you with incredible pressure, but you would never get hurt. You would feel safe the whole time, but you'd be like, oh my God, I can't move. And all it is technique. I'm not saying that that's the solution all the time, but I'm saying that is the way to train. If you're looking at training for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, if you want to train a long time and reduce your risks of injury, especially now that healthcare is really expensive, a root canal is really expensive. You get a surgery, and then you might have to go on a prescription drug that you don't
Yep.
want to do that. You get a
Yep.
surgery, you might have to go on an antibiotic. All kinds of dominoes can fall. You go
Physical
to a surgery,
therapy.
some people never wake up. People die. People die under anesthesia. I mean, so
Yep.
you don't want to just have this nonchalant attitude about it. It's mentally anguished. If you have a full-time job and you're injured and you've got to get surgery, your mind is off your job. You're distracted. You're thinking all the, my leg of it. It's a pain in the butt. So there's every reason for at least 99% of us, at least, to say, my body is my investment. Health is wealth. I mean, there's nothing. I've said this in a post recently on Instagram. I don't care, and I'd like to make a lot of money. It makes a lot of problems go away. But if you give me the choice between a lot of money and healthy, I'll take healthy.
Mm.
Healthy is huge.
You know,
It's there's no substitute for healthy.
I got to
Wealthy
tell you,
can come behind healthy.
let me say something about that because I'm a bit. There's a bit of distance between us. Not in how I think about what you're saying, but in my practice, and my body doesn't reflect what you're saying. My body doesn't reflect it, and it's okay for me to be authentic here, and this is an authentic moment. Okay, um, just having these talks that we're doing every week has an impact, and just coming to the material and hearing these things. What I realized first off is you're the average of what you say is your five closest friends. You're the average of that. That's what makes you. Um, us talking like this every week and just getting on that same level, it's changing me because I know cognitively, I know what you're saying, I know all these things. It's so hard to live it. It is so hard to change and break habits. I've been forcing myself recently, getting up at 4 in the morning. I got up at 6. Oh, I mean, I rolled out of bed finally at 5 something, and then I got the day started really at 6. Um, but that was because the UFC fights went on last night, and then I had trouble getting everyone into bed yesterday. But anyways, um, what these things you're saying, it's really hard. And what hit home to me was, I had to, it was kind of what you said to me about the longevity aspect of it. I took it and I started working. It's like, I've got a piece of cotton right here. And I took this cotton and I started like just thinking about this concept we you're talking about. And I started just, unraveling it, pulling it out. And I started thinking more about how whatever I'm doing here and how I'm living my life. And I started saying, what is it that I want? Why am I here? What is it I really want? Um, uh, for me, I've said this before. All I want to do is just roll jujitsu at Henzo's and get my black belt. I'm very simple. So my whole life is like everything I'm trying to do is to support that. It really is to support that. So, I've been realigning the kind of work that I do so that I have more independence. But that's been harder in some ways. But this thought about longevity and what you're saying, I started thinking about like, I'm going to need to spend a lot of time working on myself because I want to be around to roll. I think about there'll come a time which one of us is going to pass away before the other. That's just the reality. One of us will, and we're going to go into what I believe is a forever darkness sleep. It's just I don't remember where I was before I was born, and I probably won't remember where or know where I'm at after I'm dead. It's just blackness. But anyways, with the time that I have, I'd like to stretch that out. I'd like to stretch that out. I'd like to be like Helio Gracie, rolling with people, rolling with young guns, rolling with Dennis Ash for, in his 90s, 80s and 90s. You talk about technique there. But anyways, I digress. The longevity.
The
The
people, in my experience, and I study longevity a bit, and I'm getting ready to go back to school, and this is very important to me. But I find a huge correlation, and you've got this, and I've got this. I find a huge correlation with longevity between longevity and curiosity. People who intentional longevity, not accidental or incidental, but people who intentionally want to live long time and they're conscious and they want to live well. And, I find a connection between, I talk to so many people who are like, look, Frank, by the time I'm 75, a lot of things are going to go wrong. I'm going to be on prescription meds. A lot of my people I love are going to be dead. And the world is going to hell in a handbasket. So 75, maybe 80, that's good for me. And in fact, I'm blown away at how common that mindset is. That's a very common, typical mindset.
That's a very
Now,
good point.
yeah, when you run into a really curious person's like, dude, there's just too much in the world that I want to know. There's so
Yeah.
many books I want to read. There's so many places I want to visit. There's so much jujitsu I want to do and learn. It's, I want to do this. I want to
uh,
be around to see other people do this. I want to be around when humanity figures this problem out. I want to,
mm,
really curious. The thing that I think, in my opinion, so far, I could change my mind, but in my opinion, I'm like, there is such a strong correlation between curiosity and the desire to live a long life. And if you're not, and again, everybody, this is the thing, though, and you and I talk about this a lot here, and it's worth. I said, I call it's a Forzaism. We're all white belts of something, right? That's my phrase. We're all, or as you like to say, we are all John Jones,
yeah.
and meaning we all come in this world, and I'm a God believer, and I just believe God gives us all gifts, and at the same time, we all have weaknesses. We all have. I am sitting here, and I, when I date women, I have to tell them because they think, God, this guy's the most perfect, and I have to like talk them off the ledge early, like that's like setting me up to fail, right? I'm like, no, listen, I have had plenty of flaws. I got plenty. I've had plenty of stuff. I've had plenty of challenges. But I also, at the same time, I work hard. I think I'm a very resilient person. I've got a lot of grit, but we all have those things, those Achilles heels, and we all have them, you know, and some of the things that you're excel at and I don't, and vice versa. You were saying maybe whatever, maybe it's the fitness thing, like you have your thing, and that's okay because that's kind of the way that nature designed it. I mean, a lion has its weaknesses, it has its upside, and you know, it's so everything has a pro and a con, a kryptonite and an advantage. But so I would just say that um, with all of these I lost my train of thought here a little bit.
Okay. Well, I want to, while you recollect it.
Oh no, that's what I wanted to say. So
Okay.
longevity and curiosity. So you know, like I've always said here, and it's worth repeating. It's your body. Nobody's paying for you. It's worth it. You go to the emergency room. I've yet to see the training partner who comes with you and writes a check right there and says, "Listen, whatever it costs, I'll pay for his knee or her knee.
Yeah.
You just let me know. Here's my
Yeah.
number. Here's my information. Whatever it costs.
Here's my checking account.
Send me the bill."
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you're at the end of the day, like I was training, you know, recently, and when I train with some people, they're like, you know, sometimes people ask me to roll and I say no. And then sometimes I ask people to roll and they say no.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when someone says no in training, it's kind of like I mean, it is like at some level, it's a rejection. Like it's not a good feeling when you're like, you go up to someone, "Hey, how are you? Would you like to roll?" And they're like, "No," and you're like, you get used to it after a while, so it doesn't affect you. But when it first happens, you're like, because you're like thinking, well, wait, like, um, what's wrong with me? Like, why do they not want to roll with me? You know, and or what is it? Am I a spaz? And what, do I have a reputation? This is a natural human thing when people are like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. And now in the old days, this problem was solved because in the old days there were not that many academies, so you just had to do whatever the instructor said. Find a new partner and whoever you train with the 300 pounders, whatever. You just did that. You didn't get to be a
Yeah.
prima donna or pick your role. And of course, the risk of injury was, in my opinion, higher because you just didn't have an option. Nowadays, you do have more options. I mean, you have other academies you can go to. If they keep putting you with gorillas, you have other options to find a gym or an academy that fits more of what you're looking for, your personality, where you are, your risk, the level of risk you want to assume. But let's go to this thing about rejection. It's a fascinating thing because, even me as a black belt, like I'm pretty smooth and I don't hurt anybody. And I'm like, when someone says no, I'm like, what are they saying no about? Like, what could they possibly, don't they see me over here flowing and being all technical? Like, what are they saying? And I'm like the smallest person in class. So if they're saying no, what are they saying no about? Right. And it doesn't happen much, but it does. Now I find myself turning other people down who want to train with me. And what's weird about that is my ego does come into it because there's part of me that still feels, even with all my experience, I still feel like, man, I must look like the biggest wimp. I don't want to roll with him. He thinks he can beat me. He thinks I'm soft. There is definitely a part of me, a competitive part of me, the ego part of me, the part of me that's got a champion's heart and a champion's desire that's like, I should roll with him and just show him what's up and show him how good I am and show him how brave I am. And I've been doing this a long time and I've got some good tricks up my sleeve. And there's a part of me that wants to do that. But then there's that old phrase, discretion is the better part of valor. At some point, the warrior has to decide how much ammunition, how many more bullets are left in the chamber. At some point, there's only so many miles on the human body. There's only so much carnage. And so at some point, Kenny Rogers, no one to hold him, no one to fold him. At some point, I have to say, listen, Frank, news alert, breaking news. You're 135 pounds. You're 49 years old. You have a titanium plate in your neck. You have a 27-inch scar down your right leg, and you don't have normal blood flow in that leg. You have other injuries. You have a shoulder that just came out of the socket completely
Mm-hmm.
a week ago for the 15th time that we had to pop back in. You've been in the emergency room for 3.5 hours in torture, waiting for them to put your shoulder back in. Like,
Mm.
yeah, you're not going to just be able to roll with every 200-pounder who propositions you and says, "Hey, Frank, want to roll?" You can't. And
Yeah.
that's, to believe it or not, that was extremely hard. And I've never made total peace with it. I still feel kind of like, eh. But the reality is, discretion's the better part of valor. And like, I'm like, Frank, you got to be smart, okay? You got other things, you got financial things, you got other responsibilities. You cannot afford, as much as I love this, it's not paying my bills. It's not putting money in. I'm not Gordon Ryan or whoever who's making, or Mikey Musumeci who's making a lot of money doing this. I'm not. It's not where my bread is buttered. I love it. It's super important to me. But it's just like yoga, Noah, when you're on that yoga mat. It's your practice. It's not someone else's practice. At the end of the day, it is your practice. It's
That's
your
profound
practice.
right there. Yeah.
And you should have some say in the design of it. Your
Yep.
instructor should give you some say. It doesn't have to be a tremendous, but you should have some say in how it's designed and who you roll with. If your instructor is putting you with killers and has no regard for the killers you're going with that are raising your risk of injury, raising your risk of going to the emergency room, raising your risk of having a bill that's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, it's going to go on your credit. It's going to distract you from your work. It's going to maybe put you into a depression. You need to have a say about that. And if you don't have a say in that, then you might need to look and go to a place where they do respect and they do let you have some say in designing that. Because like I said, they're not paying your bill. They're not
That's
paying
right.
your bill. I haven't seen it yet. When
Yeah.
that happens,
Mhm.
when the Jiu-Jitsu Academy and the instructor and the training partner pays for your surgery, then we'll have that conversation. But right now they don't.
That's a big point. That is a big deal to me. Is I believe that every practitioner has agency, and agency is the capacity to make decisions. If you have an agent, if you have like a talent agent, and you're a performer, you're focused on your craft, and a talent agent is out there working on your behalf. Agency, where you have power of attorney. Power of attorney is a form of agency because you're giving the capacity to make decisions over you to someone else through a legal instrument. Whereas in jujitsu, to me, what you're saying there is to have agency. Um, I don't like to roll at places that that where I don't have agency. I think because of these things you're saying, it could be, this other person, their ghee smells like rotten eggs because they put it in the back of their car. And I have rolled uh, around the world. I have rolled with people, um, God bless them. But when I was in Rio, some of those kids that were coming from the favelas, they had rotten geese on. And, I'm like, I can't roll with you. Sorry. And it didn't look good. I mean, it doesn't look good. There's this gringo coming down to my country and he's not wanting because your ghee is rotten. And, it's just, I have agency and that's to protect me, to protect my skin, to protect
I
my
mean,
bones.
think about this, Noah. For a lot of my career, I was rolling with guys 190, 200, 230, 250, 300. Some guys north of 300. I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't even getting paid. I'm putting my body out there. I'm putting my body on the line, mainly in a lot of ways just for ego, and because it's like, oh, that's just the way it is. You break it down, you're like, at least a stunt man, right? If you're in Hollywood and you're a stunt man, they're gonna pay you for the stunt. If you're a pro wrestler, they're gonna pay you. I mean, it might not be much, but they're gonna pay you
Mm-hmm.
to get smashed with the steel chair, and hopefully the other guy does it right, whatever. But at least you're going to get something. You're getting something out of it. Like, nobody's paying me to get squashed by some, or even if I win, like, the risk of whatever. I mean, yeah, I win, but now something on me hurts. Nobody's paying me to roll with this gorilla 220 pound or 200 pound. I mean, it's actually amazing to me that we actually, like, if you think about this sport, which I love and which you love and which we know builds people phenomenally, but if you think about how crazy it is, like if you came down from Mars, you know, and you're just like, okay, these people are consensually trying to hurt each other, choke each other, armbar, heel hook each other. 99 out of 100 of them are not making any money, and they just like it, and they do it for years and years and years, and they just like. In some ways, it makes sense on a primal level that we have, you know, we're animals, we have an animal side to us, and we like to play, we like to chase things, we like to hunt things. But on the other hand, it's really stupid in the modern world. You're like, let's sign up for violence, consensual violence. I mean, at the end of the day, as nice as it is, as sportsmanlike, a lot of consensual violence, especially in the old days. And you're like, why? Like, nobody's getting paid. Just why?
Yeah.
Because I want to feel like I'm better than you. I want to dominate you. I want to feel like I don't know. I want to feel the something that me beating all these other people makes me feel whatever, and it becomes a drug or it becomes a euphoria, something. There's got to be something, because it ain't money for most people. Like, why are so many people signing up to be like Pohada, right? Like, you know, it's kind of crazy. I
Yeah.
guess it's because maybe some of the theory is that, okay, it's in us primally. I said fighting is in our DNA, my phrase, another four is ism. That's a big part of it. And the other part of it might be that since our society has restricted, it really has tried to, I'm using this word lightly, but in some ways it's castrating and neutering. I mean, you know, there is like, there's so many more rules and regulations, and you can't do this, you can't do this and this. And so it kind of makes this space that we're in even more special, because
Hmm.
it's one of the places where you can still be primal and it's okay. You can choke someone and it's okay. You're not
Yeah.
going to go to jail. You know, if you were to do this, you know, if you were to go around bear hugging people normally, you just go to jail. You know, you can bear hug people in jiu-jitsu and then shake hands afterwards, you know, and it's like,
Hmm.
you know, oh, that was a good bear hug, you know. I mean, 99 out of 100 people, regular people, if you bear hug them, would try to get you arrested. So it's a fascinating, special place where things that are not legal and are not allowed to exist anywhere else, which is why it was so hard for us to get these sports legitimized in the first place, because regular public was like, this should not be legal. This is not okay. It was so foreign to
Yeah.
people. You can't be doing this. You're choking each other. You're nuts. You're twisting a guy's knee, and you're not allowed to do that. Then you're
Hmm.
gonna get somebody hurt. You know, a normal person would think that.
Yeah.
But we have to know, especially those of us in our 40s, like you and I, and people that are in their 50s, and even, you know, younger people who are professionals who aren't going to be a pro athlete. We just have to realize there's a balance, and the balance point's different for everybody. You have to figure out how much risk are you willing to assume on those mats. You have to figure that out. And somebody who wants no risk just will stop training. Right? There's going to be some risk. Um, but the older I get, the more I don't want to take the risks that I did take. I took a lot of risks for a lot of years. And I took risks in boxing, you know, boxing sparring, in stand-up sparring, in wrestling, in jiu-jitsu practices, MMA practices. I don't want to take those risks anymore. I just think that they're just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze now at this point. And I think I understand now. I didn't used to understand when other people came in and they didn't want to go as hard, balls to the wall. I didn't understand them. I do now. It's
Yeah.
not just that you're a wimp. It's not just that you're a wimp and you're weak. You might be a knight in shining armor if the moment arose. If there was a serious situation, you might rise to the occasion and be a knight in shining armor and be the bravest person in the building. But you might go to training and be like, this is not the most important thing in the world to me right now. It's important. I love it, but I have work tomorrow. I have responsibility. I have mouths to feed. Uh, you know, and you've got to decide, how are you going to do that so that you can train tomorrow?
Yep. That right
Where are
there.
you? Yeah,
Yep.
where are you going to be able to do that? Where are you going to be able to train so that you can train tomorrow, the next day, the next week,
And
and stay on the path?
that's what I've asked Henzo. You know, I've said this before many times. I asked Henzo, is it better for me to go 100% all out when I come to the mats, or should I come in and, a risk management approach, like what you're saying? And, his advice to me was you learn more and your body adapts the more frequently you come. And the name of the game here is to avoid injury and to stay on the mats as consistently as possible. Your body will adapt to the sport, and good things will happen as long as you just keep coming consistently. And it's a challenge to do that. Hey Frank, we're coming down the last few minutes. I didn't get to the topics I wanted to, but I want to ask you. I want to ask you before we go. Is that whenever I stop the podcast, stay on because I got to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
All right.
We need in a future podcast. Number one, I saw Jordan Worth today, our old buddy Jordan Worth, who used to share this space with us. He showed me some great heel hook stuff. Obviously, if I just said to you, he showed me some great blank, you could probably fill in the blank. If I just said he just showed me some heel great hooks. Blank, here was a heel. Yeah, heel hooks. It was some really good stuff. But I told him, we'd love to have him on again, so we can have him on in the coming weeks. And then the other thing is we got to talk about Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul in a future podcast too. Even though we're going to be a couple weeks late, we've got to talk about that. That is so many goodies, so many lessons for the martial artists out there. So.
All right. Well, it's yet again another great podcast. Let's trim this one a little early today.
Okay.
We're being consistent. Hitting the point. I think next weekend's Father's Day, or is it the week after? So we got that coming along too. But anyways,
we could do one during the week if you want, or we could just go to a different day. But we can do a makeup if you want.
Excellent. Well, yeah, let's figure that out. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap here. Hang on. After I shut this off. So this has been Everyman BJJ podcast. I'm Noah, co-host Frank Forza, and we come on air every Sunday, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. So it's been a great talk, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.